Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? I've never been accused of being quiet, so if you say you can't, I can fill this room without a microphone. Yes, I did run my first half marathon. It was my first race ever. I didn't know that most people don't run their first races as half marathons. It was music, every mile. I couldn't help it. But that's not why we're here, right? We're not running marathons, especially not here in Vegas today. I don't know about you, but I made a commitment before I came. And maybe you can relate, maybe you can't. I made a commitment to health and wellness before I came to the SHRM conference. I said, LaFern, you're going to go out there and you're going to exercise every morning. Don't get off schedule. You're going to eat right. Don't get caught up in all the junk. You're going to sleep every night, a full night's sleep. And as soon as I got off that plane, that commitment evaporated as quickly as the moisture on my skin. But I had a plan. There's a difference between intention and execution. And when we talk about culture change in organizations, first of all, I'm going to make you a promise. I'm not going to keep saying culture change, because I know if you keep singing the same song over and over, it's like a lullaby. It'll put you to sleep. And I know you have your own experiences with what culture change looks like in your organizations. But I want you to think about the impact that you're having on your organizations if you're responsible for that communication. So you're there to get everybody all excited, and sometimes you get people who are right behind you and they're cheering and they've got your back and they'll do whatever it takes. And then you have these folks, the ones who, regardless of how much energy you put into trying to show them how it's going to be different in the organization, they just don't have time for it. They just as soon go lay down somewhere and take a nap. It takes me back to an experience I had some years ago when I first relocated to Tampa, Florida, which is where I spend part of my time. And you say, LaFern, isn't it hot in Tampa? Yes, it's hot and it's humid. We have moisture. I can take moisture. But I think back to a time when I first moved to Tampa, didn't know very many people at all. I was working in an organization, volunteering my time, serving on a board, decided that's the way I'm going to step up and help lead. If you want to see things change, step in and get engaged. So I went to the board meetings, and they were 6 p.m., and like everybody else, I'd been to work all day. And I tend to not be as much of a small talk person. So aren't we here to get this organization that's been floundering? Aren't we here to get the organization stood up and going? Yeah, that's why we're here, right? Everybody agreed. So I'd get to the meetings a few minutes before 6, walk in, and folks would be mired in chit-chat. So I would do what LaFern did at that point in her life. I'd walk in, hi, how are you? Really didn't care to hear it. Just asked it because it sounded good. How are you? And I'd get the looks like we really don't want to engage with her. She's ready to work. She's really not that interested. And you know what? In my mind, if I'm very honest with you, which I'm always an honest person, I'm thinking they're just lazy and need to get involved. Interestingly enough, I was having a conversation with a dear friend of mine who is the person I go to if I want honesty without a filter. Anybody have folks like that in your life, honesty without a filter? So I went to him and I said, look, Lawrence, I'm having a problem with these folks. They just don't seem motivated to jump in and do the work. Here's where we are. Here's where we're trying to go as an organization. How do I get them to move? He said, so tell me how you think you're being effective. I said, well, I come in, I'm ready to work, I'm ready to commit my time. I feel like I'm engaged. I'm a fun person. I really am. And he said to me, in only the way that he can, oh, really? That's what you see. He said, well, let me tell you what I see. I see someone who comes in, who is committed to the work, who really isn't that committed to the people that she wants to do the work with her. And if you're really interested, you're going to have to learn how to navigate those relationships in order to get to the results that you desire. And so I did what any professional, graceful leader would do in a situation like that. I got in my car and I said to myself, he's a fool. He does not know what he's talking about. I am engaged. They're just lazy. They need to step up and do the work. I don't care about their weekend. I simply want to make sure we accomplish the goals of the organization. And in 24 hours, I let that seep in and simmer. And I wish I could tell you that I went home and immediately changed my mind, but it took a good 24 hours. I started thinking about what he was telling me. And it takes me to what it really takes to see an organization move from where it is right now to where it desires to be. So there's perspective, the way you see yourself. There's perception, the way other people see you. There's positioning. It's what you are preparing to do to make sure you can get to that end state. And then there's performance. That's putting it all into action. That's where the rubber meets the road. You've done all the planning. Now how do you execute? So as you're working in your organizations, I know it's not always easy, but as you're working in your organizations, first of all, try not to use the word or the phrase culture change. Nobody wants to feel like they're being changed. You have to be savvy enough to help them move in that direction in a way that is really motivating to them. There's a framework that I tend to use whenever I'm having challenging conversations. First of all, I think about identifying what's most important to me. Now, that's where I sit down and have the honest conversation with myself. LaFern, yes, this person works your last nerve, but you've got to figure out a way around it. See, what I'm not trying to do today is I'm not trying to change your mind about how you should feel about folks. They show up how they show up. We have our emotions around that, but this is about how do you get to the end state, what the organization needs. It's about the business. And so I tell myself the truth about some of the folks that I work with who are less than the most desirable people to work with, but I work with a lot of fantastic folks. Identify the real problem. So what's the issue? Anybody ever work with that person who can poke holes in a concrete wall? They don't see anything right, everything's wrong, nothing will ever work. So once I identify what the problem is, I think about how to describe, say to that person who's poking the holes, how to paint the picture, how to describe it in a way that resonates with him or her. Once I'm able to effectively describe, not in a way that works for me, but in a way that resonates with someone else, I express the expectation. It's not about what I want. It's about here's where we as an organization are going. It's not where we want to go. It's where we're going. Now, if the truth be told, and I go back to identify, in my mind, I'm having another conversation. There are some people who are going to stay on board, some people who will want to jump off, and some, if you've ever been on the back of a truck, you know, before they didn't allow you to ride on the back of a pickup truck, and they take off and you kind of slide backwards, some will slide off when you take off. So express the expectation, what it's going to look like. And then ask for feedback. Now, be careful. You want to make sure you're asking for feedback in a way that's going to get you what you're looking for. Asking, so what do you think? Opens you up to being poked like a concrete wall. Asking, tell me what you think will work, helps set the conversation up for only a suggestion that's positive, that's favorable, that's beneficial. It doesn't mean you don't want negative feedback, but there are some people who won't give you positive feedback unless you specifically ask for it. And once you ask for that feedback, then you want to have a list. You want to make sure you're all on the same page. Anybody ever try to lose weight, get your health together? So you eat right, you exercise, you sleep, You track your progress. You make tweaks when it's not working. And then you go through that process all over again. That's what works. Sometimes we don't do that and we see the negative results. So when you have that process in place for having conversations, especially when it's around moving the organization from where it is to where you are going, it helps create discipline. The same way that having that personal plan in place helps us create discipline for ourselves. Now, I understand that at some point today, someone sang one of my favorite songs. Anybody familiar with I Will Survive? At first I was afraid. I was petrified, just thinking I could never live without you by my side. And then, you know, he couldn't get back in because she changed the lock. So Gloria Gaynor had a version of I Will Survive that was disco anthem freedom. You knew by the time she got to the end of that song, she was so glad he was gone, she was never looking back. Well, what I found out is there are other versions of I Will Survive. There are many versions, many covers. There is the group Cake, which is alternative rock. And I will tell you, the easiest way, you'll have to go find the YouTube video yourself, because I can't sing what they sang, because they added some words. But I will tell you this much. The lead vocalist was moving on, and he had some negative things and angry things to say about the person he was leaving behind. Same song, different version. And then you have the Papini sisters. Anybody familiar with the Andrews sisters? The harmony, that little quaint feeling, that I will survive. 3-part harmony. Now see, I can't even imagine that. I share this with you to make a point about different approaches with the same message. You have some people who are going to love the Gloria Gaynor, the disco bounce, bounce, bounce. It has never died for me. You're going to have some folks who can relate to Cake's version. You will have others who will love that harmonious melody of the Papini sisters. When you are crafting your message, you need to ensure that you're thinking about the different ways that people receive and embrace what you're trying to share. How do you get them to move from where they are to where you are going? It's all in the messaging. Many of you might be familiar with this video. I've used it several times in presentations, and I like the impact of it because it underscores the power of language. For example, I don't tend to refer to people as crazy, even though I do believe some people have behaviors that appear that way. I use a different word, and I call it interesting. If I'm hearing a story, somebody sharing an experience with me, and at the end, instead of saying, that sounds crazy, I simply say, interesting. In this video, there is a blind man who's sitting on the street, and he has a sign that says, I'm blind, please help. He has a can where he's collecting coins. As people are walking by, you hear the coins dropping into the can little by little. A lady walks past him. She looks at his sign, turns around, picks up his sign, and puts it back down. All of a sudden, he hears coins raining. They're in the can, they're on the cardboard or under the can. He asked her, what did you do to my sign? She said, I wrote the same message, but different words. So instead of, I'm blind, please help, it said, it's a beautiful day, and I can't see it. The way you frame your conversations, the way you frame your communications, has the ability to shape how people receive it, how they resonate with it, how they embrace it, and how they walk in it, because that's what you ultimately want. You want the action. If you don't believe that this works, there's that Kleenex commercial that's out now with the little boy on the school bus. Anybody seen that one? where the little girl is crying and all the kids are off the bus, and he gets back, walks back to her, and he says, you know, they say a lot of negative things about boys, like we don't care and we're insensitive, and he gives her a Kleenex, and he kind of encourages her and then allows her to get off of the bus first. I just wanted to go buy a box of Kleenex after having seen that commercial. Then there's the little boy who was in the Nike commercial a couple of years ago during the Super Bowl, and all you see is a long stretch of road out in some country area, and he's running, and he's overweight, and he's huffing, and he's puffing. And we tend to think of Nike being the product of the elite athlete. And what Nike decided it wanted to do was to help everybody see themselves in their product. Because we're all, if we're honest, are not elite athletes. I did not finish that half marathon first. I ran it and I finished it. That's all that was important to me. And so how do you craft your language to get the impact that you're looking for? What is it that you're saying? And what's the response? How can you tweak it if you're not getting the response you need? Linguistic anthropology is the study of language and its impact on how we live, on our culture, on the way we engage. There are some organizations, if I'm working with them, instead of using the word strategy, I use the word roadmap, because strategy just for some people seems like it's too much. Instead of saying execution, I might say taking action. Little tweaks in language that have a significant impact. What are the little tweaks that you can make in the words that you use, the language you use, that help get you from where you are as an organization to where you are going? Because the goal is to get to that other state. There are a lot of dynamics to communication. You have a lot of different people with different experiences and backgrounds, and there's no way, no one approach where you can please everyone. It is your role, your responsibility as leaders to make sure that you craft a message. If you don't understand the power of marketing messages or understand that crafting your communication is another form of marketing, just go watch some of the best marketers. Look at Apple, how they draw you into their products. They're not the least expensive, but they believe that they're targeting the people who are willing to invest. And people will invest in those products over and over again. That's what I want you to do. Go out, engage with those who need to be where you are going in ways that keep them coming back, keep them having your back over and over again. My motto is that success is not defined by your wings, but by your courage to leap from the cliff's edge and fly. So if you're ready to soar, what are you willing to do about it? I wish you well during the rest of this conference. Thank you for your time.